Finally, there is a remake that has done something right. Welcome back to another video of Everything Movies. I am Jefferson Cole, and today I'll be reviewing How to Train Your Dragon. Before we move on, don't forget to drop a like on the video. Thank you.
I'm the first Viking who wouldn't kill a dragon.
First to ride one, though.
All right, bud, you ready?
The new How to Train Your Dragon is directed by the same director that created the first movie, the original How to Train Your Dragon, and his name is Dean the Blois. I think that he did a really good job with this one. I definitely would say, just off rip, yeah, go see it in theaters. It felt magical. It felt like I was watching a fantasy movie, and with the booming speakers and the sound and the amazing soundtrack by John Poe. John Poe did the original movie soundtrack, and he also did this new one, and man, it felt nice to see him come back and revisit his old music and just kind of tweak it just a little bit, make it better in any type of way that he could. But yeah, so now let's get into it. The casting for this movie. I think the casting was really, really great, actually. The guy that plays Hiccup is Mason Thames. Mason Thames, I've never seen him in anything else. I legit thought that this might have been his first movie gig, but apparently he's been in another few things. I just haven't watched those other things. There was one actor that stood out that I was like, oh, I've definitely seen him in something else, and I couldn't quite put a pin on it while I was watching the movie, but it was the guy that plays Fish Legs. Fish Legs is played by Julian Dennison, and I remember seeing him in Deadpool 2. But anyway, he did amazing with that character as well. He was funny, he was smart, he was cheeky, it was nice. But now back to the main character. So Hiccup, he did really, really good. His dad, Stoick, is actually played by the same guy that voiced his dad in the original movie, Gerard Butler. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Gerard Butler, you did amazing. I loved your role. Now, I wanted more from your role, but we'll get into that in just a second. And then Astrid. I loved Astrid towards the end. Towards the end of the movie, I loved her. But throughout the movie, and she was played by Nico Parker. Nothing against the actor at all. She did an amazing job playing the character. I just have a little, I don't know, like it's just a little nitpick about the writing of their characters, that of her character in Stoick's character, where I was just like, okay, they could have done a little bit less here or a little bit more there, you know? But that's just my own opinion. I think these actors and the casting for this movie was phenomenal, and I think that they did a good job with matching these people with these characters. Some people might argue that it wasn't enough emotion. And I will say that when it comes to animation, speaking of the animation and the live action comparisons, there were parts of the movie where Hiccup, the actor, you could tell he really studied the animation, and you can tell that he was trying to hit every single, like even the movements of Hiccup. Like you can tell he was really trying to copy it well. Like there was one scene in particular that I'm gonna spoil it a little bit. I mean, it's in the original movie, but like when Hiccup first goes out to search for Toothless, and Toothless is like tied up and still kind of down. He just got injured after Hiccup shot him out of the sky. There's like this moment where like as soon as Hiccup notices Toothless, he like quickly hides behind a rock, and like on his face he's supposed to have like this crazy look of fear on his face. And I thought it was so hilarious to see that in animation. Like I'm a big fan of facial expression and animation and how exaggerated it is and how funny it can be. And I noticed that in this new movie, he tried to portray that, but it just did not come off the same. You know, like it just didn't come off well enough as animation does it. In some ways, I'm glad that he, you know, attempted to really try to get every like expression, every movement right as an actor. But also I'm like, in these type of moments, you could really just kind of make it your own. And I'm like, how else could he make it his own, really? Like, you're supposed to be scared. So I think it comes down to a preference. And the animation is just funny and it's more entertaining to watch rather than just trying to see a live person trying to imitate the exact same animated face, you know? There is a good thing that comes out of a movie that's trying its hardest to do the exact same thing. Because there was a moment, oh my gosh, where I was like, they've done their homework. That's why I think it was a great remake. I think this is probably one of the best live action remakes I've ever watched. I applaud them because you can tell they were really big fans of the original, and they really did put their all into this. Because there was another scene where Toothless's movement. So, and speaking of, I'm skipping around, trying to reach all my talking points. But Toothless's movements in the forbidden friendship scene. If you're familiar with the movie soundtrack, but it's a scene where Hiccup and Toothless are first getting acquainted with each other, and they're just trying to, like, Toothless is drawing on the ground, and Hiccup is also drawing on the ground, but Toothless is trying to copy him. That whole scene where it was just very heartfelt, very emotional. I felt like, man, this is good. Like a boy and his pet, like getting to know each other, learning to love each other. That scene was absolutely perfect. Probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. It was screen to screen. Like, if I could put the animated movie and the live action right beside each other, they did it exactly right. Even down to the smallest animated detail, like the mistake that everyone knows about the original, that the animators actually made a mistake on Toothless. They made him hesitate a little bit before he moved his head into Hiccup's hand. They added that hesitation in there as well. And I'm like, wow, like they really did their homework, because that animation mistake wasn't even supposed to be in the movie, but they decided to keep it in there because they felt like that it brought out more emotion and more tension between the two characters. And I was just like, yeah, no, that's really, really good. Now, I've talked about the good. Let's talk about some growing pains, because like I said in a video that I recently just posted, this movie is a little bit longer than the original, and they do add some scenes. Now, the scenes that they add into are okay. They're okay. But there's only one scene in this movie where I was like, take it out. Take it out. Like, there's a scene with Astrid and Hiccup. After Gabber like tells them, this is the book of dragons, and this is everything that we know of dragons, and then all the other characters leave the room, there is a scene between in that scene, Astrid and Hiccup are conversing with each other. And then Astrid goes on, in the original movie, it's just like, Hiccup is like, hey, we can study together, and she's already like read it, and she just walks out, and that's the end of the scene. This movie, they add on like 3 more minutes of her. She's like, she does her line, she's like read it, and then it looks like she's about to walk out. Hiccup is like, wait, let me talk to you. And then she goes off on him. Like, she like literally was like, do you not understand what we're up against, this and that and the other? And I'm like, in my mind, like, Hiccup is not dumb. In the story, he's not dumb. Like, he makes inventions. He knows the situations that he's in. Like, he's not dumb. And the way that she was talking to him, it was like demeaning. It was like as if he just doesn't understand the weight of the situation that the Vikings are in versus the dragons. And I'm like, why do y'all even have this scene? Like, you're just making her less of a character for me to like. Like, in the original movie, Astrid came off as someone that was like mysterious, kind of jealous of Hiccup, but not really to the extent of like hating Hiccup. In this movie, she came off as if she just hated him. And so by the end of the movie, when she ultimately like starts to like him and like work with him in Toothless, it just comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't really feel earned for real. Like, it just feels like she just changes her mind. Like, oh, okay, I like you now. Like, because she was all for her people. She was all for the Vikings. It just doesn't make sense for her to just turn her feelings around and start to like Hiccup all of a sudden just because she rode on his dragon, But towards the end of the movie, Astrid was awesome. I loved her scenes. Even the added scene that they put when the final boss battle, where she's like in the mouth of the dragon and stuff. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. Now, as far as Hiccup's dad's character, I wish they had added more. But the only things that I wanted more, I'm like, yeah, they probably would have had to made the movie into like a PG-13. Because I was like, man, what would be really cool? And this is like my thoughts while I was watching the movie. I was like, what would be really cool is if they added more scenes of Vikings versus dragons, like actually showing the dragons ripping these Vikings apart. And like literally just showing the dragons as an actual threat from Stoick's perspective. So like on that, when Stoick and the armies of the Vikings leave, and Hiccup is doing all the training and stuff, they could, if they wanted to add extra scenes, they could have added some scenes of like the dragons and Vikings actually fighting. Like they tried to, but then I remembered, I was like, dang, this is actually supposed to be a PG movie. So obviously they're not gonna add any of the actual fight scenes, because like they talk about how much the Vikings hate the dragons, but they don't really show why they hated the dragons so much. Like if I had just seen at least maybe one extra scene of like the dragons whooping them and tearing them apart, you could understand why they, back at home, they got dragons in cages. They keep them as slaves. They keep them as like training animals, like for them to like practice on killing them. Like, because it's almost barbaric. I know they're Vikings, and the word barbaric is like very fitting, but it is barbaric for them to have these dragons in cages just for them to train and keep them alive and beat them up. And like, if you think of it in that way, like it's kind of very cruel. If we were given the perspective of why they treat these dragons this way, then that would have added more context to Stoick and added more reasons for me to believe his side of the story, and for me to understand his feelings and why he treats Hiccup the way he does. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie in theaters. I really felt like I was watching a fantasy film. It was just fun. The dragon flying scenes were cool. I prefer the animated scenes a little bit better. Like the flying scene where Hiccup is first learning how to fly, the paper flies out of his mouth and he's like trying to, like, he just had to make his instincts kick in. Live action, it kind of was like blurry. I really couldn't like see the struggle for real. Like it was kind of fast. Like it was kind of hard to keep up with. But in the animation, like it just felt, it felt more like exciting and felt more suspenseful. And I really felt like wow, he was in danger for real. Like, you know, I don't know. And I also think the score was even better. Like I don't know what he did to change the score for the live action, but I prefer the original score that was being played during the scene where Hiccup and Toothless were about to die and they were trying to learn how to fly and stuff. Like I like the scene in the original much better than I did in the live action. Overall though, it was a fun movie. I highly suggest you go see it if you're a fan of How to Train Your Dragon. If you want to wait for subscriptions, I think you could do that too, but I do highly suggest it is a fun movie to watch in theaters. Like if you just want a good movie to see with on the big screen, go watch it. Like it's a good one. That'll be all for this review. Thank you all for watching and tuning in. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this movie review, and comment below if you've seen the original, the live action, and if it, you know, rose up to your standards, if you really enjoyed the movie or not. I would love to hear your thoughts below in the comments. Also subscribe and ring that bell for a notification of when my next video will drop. Thank you.